Hello, algebra students. Welcome to lesson 14.1, solving quadratic equations by factorization, beginning on page 184 and going through 185. Basically, all we need for this lesson is to review the cross method of factorization that we learned back in book A, chapter 4, and you have your sheets that have that summarized for you. So going through some of the examples on the sheet, one quadratic equation as an example is x squared plus 12x minus 45 equals 0. We always have something squared, an x, and then just the plain x, and then a whole number, a constant. And then what we do is we start breaking it apart. The x's would be x and x. That would make x squared. X times x is x squared. And then we go to the constant. We need to have two factors that total negative 45. In this case, it is 15 and negative 3. We could try it the other way, but since our middle component is a positive number, our larger factor should also be positive. So then we write them over here as 15x and negative 3x. When we add those two together, we have 12x. So here we multiply, here we add, and then when we are finished and that is satisfactory, we can actually solve that quadratic equation. Therefore, x squared plus 12x minus 45 equals 0 is, and now instead of going crisscrossy, we go horizontally across. So we have x plus 15, because it's a positive 15, times x and negative 3 is equal to 0. Then we split those two apart. X plus 15 equals 0, and we solve it. Therefore, x is going to be negative 15. X minus 3 is 0. We solve it. X is going to be positive 3. So our answers for x here will be negative 15 or positive 3. Now, a little more involved quadratic equation would be 6x squared minus 7x minus 20 equals 0. So to have 6x squared, we can do the x's to get the x squared, but we're going to have to do 3 times 2, which is basically the factors of 6 in this case. That works. And of course, that's going to be 6x squared. To make negative 20 and end up with a negative in the middle, I'm going to have a negative 5 times 4. So my larger digit will be with the negatives. So negative 5 times 4. And that, of course, multiplied together is negative 20. When I do my crosses, I would have 2x times 4 is 8x. 3x times negative 5 is negative 15x. Of course, negative 15 and a positive 8 is the negative 7x. Sometimes I have to try a bunch of combinations to make it work out that way, but I would just stick with it until it happens. Therefore, the solution for this quadratic equation, again, you go across, is 3x plus 4 times 2x minus 5 equals 0. I split them apart and I solve it. So 3x plus 4 is 0. You would go 3x equals negative 4 by bringing it over, and then finally x is worth a negative 4/3. Solving this, 2x minus 5 equals 0. Bring the 5 over, so it's 2x equals 5. Divide through by 2, x is 5/2. So the solution for this will either be negative 4/3 or 5/2. Now, if I were actually solving a word problem, which one I would choose would depend on what I'm going after. So let's go right to it to try it one that says solve, just solve the equation. 5x squared minus 8x minus 21 equals 0. Again, the factors for 5 are simply 5 and 1, and I didn't put the 1 down there, but remember, anything, if x is by itself, it's just like having a 1 in front of it. So 5x times x is going to be 5x squared. I need a negative and a positive to make a negative 21. I want to end up with a higher negative number somehow with the 5x's. So this time, actually, 7 times negative 3 is what I end up needing. Again, 7 times negative 3 is negative 21. And then when I do the crosses, 5x times negative 3, I get that larger negative 15x, and x times 7 is 7x. Adding those two together, I have my negative 8x. So sometimes you just gotta kind of go through trial and error to see which one fits all the parameters. Therefore, 5x plus 7 times x minus 3 is going to solve this equation. Then I solve each one of them to equal 0. So 5x plus 7 is 0. So I bring my 7 over. That's a negative 7. Divide through by 5. X is going to be negative 7/5. On the other side, x minus 3 is 0. Therefore, I bring my 3 over. X is going to be 3. So my answer for x in this case is negative 7/5 or 3. And since it's just simply solving the equation, it's either one or the other will work. Going to the next page, it once again states solve the equation 9x minus 1 times x minus 2 equals negative 7x minus 2. Okay, stuff happening here. So I basically want to bring these two things over to this side eventually. But first of all, I have to use the distributive property. So I'm going to take 9x times x and then times negative 2x. So 9x times x is 9x squared. 9x times negative 2 is a negative 18x. Then I distribute to the negative 1. So negative 1 times x is a negative 1x. Here I just threw it in there because it will help me when I combine. And of course, a negative 1 times a negative 2 is a positive 2, equals these things. At this time, I'm going to combine my like terms, which are the x's. So 9x squared is going to be negative 19x plus 2. Now I'm going to even out the sides because I want 0 at the end. So I'm going to add a 7x to this side, and I'm going to add a 2 to this side because they're both negative. So again, I combine my like terms. I end up with 9x squared. Combining my x's, I have a negative 12x. Combining my constants, I have 4 equals 0. Now I can do the crosses. I do that. 9x squared is 3x times 3x. Positive 4, but I need a negative number there. So it's going to be negative 2 times negative 2 is 4, and that's how it happened to work out. I do the crosses. 3x times negative 2 is negative 6x. Same thing here. Negative 6x squared is the negative 12x. Therefore, my solution is, since I have the same thing going across, and again, I just have to write it once. So 3x minus 2 is 0. Because if I have the same thing, like up here, it's going to be 3x minus 2 times 3x minus, it's just this thing squared because it's times each other. So 3x times 2 squared, I just need one of these. So 3x minus 2 is 0. 3x equals 2 because I bring my negative 2 over. I divide through by 3. Therefore, x is going to be 2/3. So that's one interesting little situation. I didn't show you this here. You can see this a little better because you have this quantity in parentheses times the exact same thing in parentheses, which is the quantity squared. Okay, moving on to try it 3. That says solve the equation 2x times 5x plus 3 in parentheses is equal to 9 times 5x plus 3 in parentheses. Therefore, I first have to distribute 2x on this side and then 9 on that side. So 2x times 5x plus 3. How did they do that? Oh, they did this a more simple way. Okay, I always get kind of flummoxed by that. But you can distribute it and it will work out. However, that 5x plus 3 and 5x plus 3, you are having just this and this different. So what they did is they subtracted the whole shebang and brought it over. So 2x times 5x plus 3 minus 9 times 5x plus 3 is the same as having this quantity, 5x plus 3 times 2x minus 9 equals 0. I don't often see it, so I go through the whole shebang, even out the sides. It ends up to be the same exact thing when you're done combining. But if you can see this early on, it might save you a little bit of time. If you don't worry, it works out. But I just had to show you that because it's kind of cool. So now at this point, I'm already in the form that I need to be. So by doing it this way, if I see it this way, I don't have to do that cross multiplication because it's already set up to being equal 0. So I just have to split them apart. 5x plus 3 is 0. 2x minus 9 is 0. Working it all out, x is going to be a negative 3/5, and here x is going to be 9/2. So let me just say this one more time. If you see a number that you should distribute to one quantity that is exactly the same quantity over here, one number times that, you just bring the whole thing over. So that's all positive, so you minus it, minus the whole quantity. And then you have only one of these, so 5x plus 3, and then you combine your 2x and negative 9 into the other, and then you've got it all. It's kind of slick how that works out. If you notice it, do it that way because it saves time. If you don't notice it, you will end up distributing the 2x to this and this, distributing the 9 to this and this, like I started off explaining. And then you're going to even out your sides, and you're going to come up with a quadratic equation that you're going to need the crosses for. You're going to end up with the same exact thing when you're all done. This just saves a step. Kind of cool. All right, so your assignment I will give you in class tomorrow, and we will just have a lesson of reviewing working out quadratic equations by factorizing using the cross factorization method. Thank you very much. Do good math. If you have questions, please ask.